Thank you, Cosmin. Thank you, Indy. Thank you, Celia, and also all the other people from Parasite. We feel very honored to be invited here to talk. And so I think, we had a very intense 2 days already, and also lots of conversations for us is also very fruitful. I think our talk will be slightly different, and in a slightly different kind of context in terms of what is heritage, I think, the question. Because when Indy asked me about if I have something interesting to share in this conference, I was thinking about, okay, what I can contribute, and also what are the concept of heritage. Does it necessary to be artifacts? Does it necessary to be part of the museum institutional system? So, but then I thought about this new project I initiated with Xiaoxuan very recently this year about this survey of border infrastructure between China, Russia, and North Korea. So we would like to share some thoughts, discoveries, and funny stories throughout our research, and with some memories and sort of video and graphic reflections on the whole experience. So we're gonna talk half and half throughout the presentation. So we would like to start with first our presentation with this image. I'm sure most of you are already very familiar with. This picture came out this September. It was taken in the third Inner Korea summit, which happened this year to negotiate the peace between two Koreas after almost 60 years of war. And, but we're not going talking about the meeting itself. We're gonna shift to the background, to the landscape, to the mountain and the water in this picture. So in the conference, in the press, we saw also a lot of pictures of Moon Jae-in, the South Korean president, and his wife, very obsessed with filling plastic bottles with water from the Heavenly Lake. So the place where the third summit of this Inner Korean summit happened is on the top of a mountain where there's like this lake we call Heaven Lake. The mountain has different names in Korea and in China. In Korean, it's called Mount Baekdu, which literally means the mountain of white head. In Chinese, it's called Changbai Mountain, which means the mountain of perpetual white. For centuries, this mountain has been this mountain area has been ambiguous territory until the 18th century, because there are two rivers. This is an ancient map from mid-19th century. In this territory, there are two rivers, literally form an oldest national border in history. On the west, Yalu River; on the east side, which is Tumen River. These two rivers somehow always, and they both emerged from this Mount Baekdu area. It's a very ambiguous territory and with lots of complicated branches of rivers. And so in 1712, the Qing and Choson government, which is the Chinese and Korean government, decided to conduct a joint survey of demarcation, and they trace the origin of the two border rivers back to the water source and install a stele of demarcation. But the demarcation created a paradox for this territory, because if you see from if you see from this map, that is the summit of the mountain, but here is the water division where the supposedly two rivers originated from. But this mismatch between geomancy and the geography creates a lot of paradoxes later on for the history. Because also from a geomancy point of view, all the mountains in a Korean peninsula could be seen as an extension or branch from Mount Baekdu. So in a way, through our cultural imagination, Mount Baekdu is the holy mountain, is the mother mountain for all Korean peninsula. But after the declaration, this holy mountain situated outside of Korean territory. It was in the same time with the declaration that the Korean and Choson government institutionalized the Mount Baekdu as the ancestral mountain. So the mountain worship happens every year, even though the mountain is outside of their territory. And this was the case which lasted almost 2 centuries until 1962. And in the early 1960s, during the deterioration between in the Sino-Soviet relations, and to secure the support from North Korean government, and Chinese government decided to make a huge concession of territory by moving the borderline several kilometers north and to the Heaven Lake, so that in this kind of early 60s atmosphere, the best gift the Chinese government could give to North Korean government is some kind of access and territory from this Mount Baekdu. In a way, after 1960s, the more than half of the Heaven Lake has been North Korean territory. So in the history of 20th century, the cultural significance of Mount Baekdu has been transformed from holy mountain of the ruling family into a holy mountain of modern Korean states, both for the north and the south. If we look at propaganda paintings from the north, you can always see the Kim family standing, near the lake, point to whatever outside of the frame, and the gaze is always like standing from the north, looking from the holy mountain, looking back to Korean peninsula, and maybe imagine about the reunification or something. Even Kim Jong-il himself was said to be born in the mountain. And so there's millions of paintings like this, like also he riding horses and this and that. But also if you're looking at the anthems for both Koreans, the Mount Baekdu appear in the first sentence, both in South and North Korean anthems. Wait, I'm a little bit lost, sorry. For North Koreans, the narrative, the revolutionary narrative of the modern state has been highly constructed based on lots of stories related with Mount Baekdu, also the Tumen River and Yalu River, this mountain river region. The story of Kim Il-sung, the founding father of North Korea, the story of Kim Il-sung's river crossing and recrossing, first crossing into Chinese territory to leave from Japanese occupation, come into Manchuria, form a guerrilla force, and then recrossing the river back to Korean to combat Japanese imperial power, has become the key memories for North Korean a revolutionary narrative. And so now, even nowadays, it is still very common to see young Korean students reenact this part of history of river crossing. So what they did was they will organize together and they will depart from Kim Il-sung's hometown, walking several hundred miles all the way to the river. But of course, the actual river crossing could not happen because it's impossible. So they will just stop by the river in a symbolic gesture. And for the South Koreans, this kind of mountain pilgrimage is more complicated. And after following the division of two Koreans, South Koreans could not have access to the mountain for more than 40 years until 1992, when China re-established diplomatic relationship with South Korea. So since 1992, South Koreans, especially South Korean nationalists, they could come to the China side to access the mountain and the Heaven Lake from the north. So it was very common in the 90s or early 2000s. You saw South Koreans nationalists, they bring their national flag, they sing their anthems near the Heaven Lake, but which was later banned by local Chinese government around 2010 because they don't want to trigger any kind of response from North Korean border controls. And so I'll leave the next part to Xiaoxuan.
Okay. Sorry. As most of the images that Bo shows earlier was about China and North Korea, the story of Tumen River is not only about China, North Korea, or South Korea. It's actually there's much more agents that are shaping and reshaping the territories and the landscape of the Tumen River, as well as Mount Changbai. So maybe I can give you a very brief geography class here for those of you who do not know much about Northeast Asia. A brief overview of the physical geography of Mount Changbai and Tumen River we saw earlier in those images and videos might be helpful. With a total length of 521 kilometers, Tumen River rises on the slope of Mount Changbai and flows into the Sea of Japan. While the upper reaches of the Tumen River forms the border between China and North Korea, the last 17 kilometers of the river forms the border between North Korea and Russia before it entering the ocean. This was a result of the Convention of Peking of 1860, which enabled the Russian Empire to acquire the territory up to the mouth of the Tumen River. The Tumen River and its surrounding area subsequently became the site of violent conflict and global power shifts, notably the Russo-Japanese War from 1904 to 1905, the annexation of Korea by Japan in 1910, the establishment of Manchukuo in 1932, the partition of the Korean peninsula in 1945, and the beginning of the Cold War in East Asia since mid-1950s. So both Bo and I were attracted by the Tumen region as it is embedded with multivocal histories, competitive yet symbiotic socio-political transitions in China, Korea, Japan, and Russia. We are amazed by how the nation and state building projects of the 4 East Asian countries or regions, boasted by nationalist, colonialist, capitalist, and imperialist agendas, overlap and interlaced here. In terms of historiography, a common phenomenon in the nationalist era is that a single ethnic group, religion, or language community is used as a unit of narrative. The multivocal histories of Tumen allows us to redescribe the unique historical phenomenon which is usually ignored or oversimplified by modern knowledge. To borrow the concept of Chinese scholar Wang, Tumen River region revealed itself to be a trans-systematic society. A concept refers to an interrelated social and cultural pattern formed through the interactions, communications, and the coexistence of different cultures, ethnic groups, and regions. For China, this place was and still is an ethnic frontier. First a Manchu frontier, then an ethnic Korean frontier. The interiorization of frontiers constitute a consistent theme throughout China's nation and state formation. For Korea, the place is a key to a progressive narrative of past and present. In particular, Mount Changbai, or called Mount Baekdu in Korea, was regarded as the cradle of both the ancient Korean civilization and the modern Korean states. To Japan, the place connected two of its most important colonies, Korea and Manchuria, in the first half of the 20th century, and was a testing ground of the Japanese dream for building a pan-Asianist empire. To Russia, the region was a frontier of Russia's power expansion in the Asia-Pacific region and is a major component of Russia's pivot to East. Our collaboration also grows out of our common fascination with space. We're loosely inspired by Henry Lefebvre and Edward Soncha's conceptualization of space. And our way of observing and documenting the Tumen Shan Shui focus on the relation between perceived space, conceived space, and the lived space. With perceived space refers to the empirically measurable and mappable phenomenon, conceived space as spatial images and representations, and lived space, which is experiential complexity, grows out of the interstices of the mappable space and is also more ambiguous than representations of spatialities. Well, there are 14 focus study areas of our Tumen Shan Shui projects. We're going to be focused on 5 short space stories from 5 cities along the tributary or the mainstream of Tumen River. Our projects aim to make a case for the analysis of water as urbanizing agent, as intersections of the material and cultural, acting upon a transnational river and space in transition. We see water as participant in not only the formation of physical reality of the riparian areas defined by one river, but also the generation of conceptual relations among states within the transborder subregion. The first city, Yanji. The city was the seat of Jiandao province in the Japanese puppet state of Manchukuo from 1934 to 1943. It is a seat of the Yanbian Korean autonomous prefectures, the biggest of 2 ethnic Korean areas in China nowadays. With Hatong River, one of the main tributaries of Tumen River, running west to east through the middle of the city. With the launch of China's Belt and Road Initiative, 3 northeastern provinces of China, namely Liaoning, Jilin, and Heilongjiang province, they're looking for a new breath. So Yanji is part of this story. Chinese President Xi Jinping demonstrated his determination to aid the stricken Northeast with a highly symbolic tour in 2015 and made a stop at Yanji. So within this context, several infrastructure were initiated around 2012, including the renovation of Yanji Airport, the construction of one of the largest government buildings in northeastern part of China, as well as the refurbishment and the construction of several bridges aiming at creating better linkages between the north and the south banks of Hatong River. And water infrastructure is also an important part of the infrastructure development in Yanji since 2012, with the most famous one known as the Hatong River Beautification Project, with 8 check dams built in the middle reach of the river, tending to form a sequence of reflective pools in the center of the city, regardless of the seasonal change of water flow. So the following video will be showing these 2 different types of landscape. One is within the check dams, which is next to, So I'll be showing you the first bridge called the Heaven Lake Bridge, or called Tianchi Lake Bridge. So as Bo mentioned earlier, Heaven Lake is a lake you saw in the first image, which is about 5 kilometers away from Yanji. But this bridge is referring to the source of the river. And you can see the first check dam that is demarcating this reflective pool of river right next to Tianchi Lake. And the bridge that is on the east side of the city center is called the Yanji Bridge, which is the name of the city. It was first built by the Japanese in the 1930s and then renovated by the Chinese, first in the 1980s and then most recently in 2010. And this check dam marks the east boundary of the reflective pool. So we'll be playing you this video that shows both the memories that is being created in the past 5 years, as well as old memories of the people who has been living here for the past 50 years.
Sorry, I'm gonna switch to a QuickTime player, which is in better quality, I believe.
And the crazy desktop.
Wait, there's no sound. No, there's no sound.
Didn't you show some on top of computer?
Okay, give me 1 second. Oh, my problem. Still no sound?
Happy to help.
Let's play back.
So the song is talking about Tumen River. Tianchi Bridge I mentioned earlier. It's matching my color.
I guess we can only listen from now on. Okay, next one.
Oh.
HDMI. Maybe we can go directly here. Is this HDMI?
Should we? Yeah, should we?
Maybe just try it. If it's HDMI, maybe just try it. The water drops. I think somewhere else, maybe.
I think they're just trying to fix.
Shall we keep going?
Okay, I'll keep going.
Yeah, we'll keep going. Just imagine it's filtered by something red, you know.
Right. And it matched my color well as well. Okay. So second city is called Longjing. Formerly known as the Sixth Stitch, Longjing is located on the southern bank of the Hailan River, which is another major tributary of Tumen River. The city was first inhabited in 1877 by 14 Korean households who crossed the Tumen Rivers and entered China and started to set up their settlements here. In 1886, an ancient well dug by the Churchans, or the Manchus, were rediscovered here. 10 years later, which attracted more Koreans as well as Han Chinese cultivators who gathered in the surrounding area. To show the importance of this water source, the village was renamed Longjing, or meaning the dragon well. Replicas of the dragon well could be found in several places in Yanbian Korean autonomous prefectures, as it is a symbol of close friendship between the Korean Chinese and the Han Chinese. So on the one hand, it's a symbol of the irrigation for early settlements or the development of the paddy fields in northeast China. On the other side, Longjing is also an important place because it is a symbol of anti-Japanese sentiments that's shared between the Korean Chinese and the Han Chinese. And in the 1930s, many Koreans in China, they joined the anti-Japanese forces led by the Han Chinese Communist Party. So the first image you're looking at here is a drawing of this particular corner of Yanji History Museum. So you can see the replica of the dragon well, as well as the stone stele with the name of the dragon well being located right next to the replica. And you can also see this replica of a willow as part of the setting. And surrounding the replica of the dragon well, the stone stele, you can see this timeline. First of all is a Japanese invasion of China from 1931 to 1945. And then the second part of the exhibition or the timeline is talking about how the Korean Chinese and the Han Chinese, they work together to fight against the Japanese. Well, this is a setting or the replica of the dragon well in Yanji. 20 kilometers away from Yanji, this is another replica of the dragon well and the stone stele in the city of Longjing, which is the dragon well, the real dragon well. What is interesting about this drawing is I think the scale of the dragon well as well as the stone stele, they're quite similar to the one as a museum. But this is a real willow tree. So the willow tree is much bigger than the fake one you saw at the museum. And this is the center of a city center park called the Dragon Park. And you can see a lot of ethnic Korean Chinese. They gather at the park and play this game. Let me find the name of the card. It's called Hanafuda. So it's a playing cards game originated from Japan and then got very popular among the Korean communities in China. And what is interesting about this park is at the entrance of the park, you got a bilingual introduction of the history of the park as well as the history of the dragon well. So it was the narratives was interesting. So it was not only talking about the first half of my introduction, which is how the Korean and the Han, they work together to set up the first set of irrigation field in Longjing. But also it was saying in 1966, the original dragon well as well as the stone stele were destroyed during the Cultural Revolution. And then 20 years later, the government spent a lot of money reconstructing the dragon well as well as the stone stele at the site we're looking at here. So the next video clips will be showing you the scene we collected from both Yanji History Museum as well as the Dragon Park in Longjing. But it's a little bit hard to see the video with the red color.
Yeah, I guess maybe our project should be called "The Background of the Air is Red." But anyway. Wait. No sound? Again?
They're saying we need to work together to fight the Japanese.
It's like a small hologram display in a museum. So next, we're going to continue from where we were left. So next place is called Kaishan. Kaishan was a critical point for during Japanese Empire to transport all the natural resources from Manchuria, the northeast of China, through Korean peninsula back to Japan, and it's primary destination for extracting of natural resources. And during the Japanese empire, this idea of natural resources includes not only forest, water, but also human resources. And I'll go through briefly. Here's the bridge that still connects China and North Korea. And okay, thank you. And nowadays, Kaishan, if you travel there, you see a very typical scene of post-industrial city, and where the population already drops. But then around the city, you can see different types of slogans, which tells layers of history from different period. Being it like slogans from Mao's period, for instance, this one. Oops. Like this, it says, to sail in the ocean depends on the captain, and long live Mao Zedong's thoughts. And here it says to serve for the people, and as well as slogans from the economic reform period, which largely talking about production and also talking about the opening up of the mindset, as well as some slogans nowadays you can see on the posts, offering job opportunities for people to travel to America, Europe, Africa, and Southeast Asia, which echoes the part of history during the Japanese occupation, where this is also a primary source for exploitation of human labors. I'm gonna play this video and wait. Wait, hold on. Sound is a bit turned up.
Zooification plays an important role during the Japanese occupation of both Manchuria as well as the Korean peninsula. The rest two cities I'm going to talk about as being shown on this map, Tumen city as well as the Fangchuan city, they're gaining increasingly important role in the past 10 years as China is looking for new strategic locations to shipping the protections out to other parts of the world. Before talking about Tumen and Fangchuan, I'd like to step back and give some background information about the Tumen River Delta. In 1938, China lost access to the Sea of Japan. Attempts to gain navigation rights in the final 17 kilometers of the Tumen River from the Chinese border through the shared water of North Korea and Russia have been consistently denied. Excuse me. Provincial policymakers in China consider this lack of coastal access as a primary cause of Yanji province status as one of China's poorest provinces. So the potential benefit for China from gaining access to the Pacific Ocean has led to the coining of the phrase 借港出海, literally to borrow a foreign port and gain access to the sea. The geostrategic benefits of securing a seaport at the mouth of the Tumen River are a huge reduction in the transportation costs of shipping natural resources from northeastern part of China. While Jilin's leaders, they are ever more determined to gain coastal access, with no hopes of gaining navigation rights to the Tumen River in the foreseeable future. The province is dependent on the Russian port called Zanubino and another port in North Korea called Rason, which is the first special economic zone in North Korea. So from this map, it's showing this expansion of road infrastructure trying to connect China's border regions all the way to Danubino in Russia, as well as to Rason in the northern part of North Korea. So the first city, Tumen City is separated from the North Hamgyong province of North Korea by the Tumen River, as you can see from here. So this is the Tumen City, this is the Hamgyong province. Authorities are pumping money into infrastructure projects as part of the President Xi Jinping's plan to build a new Silk Road trading route and to make this area, which incorporates the Yanbian Autonomous Prefecture with its larger ethnic Korean population, relevant again. The old Tumen Bridge was built by the Japanese, in 1941. A new bridge has been under construction since 2016. Amid improving Sino-North Korean relations, work on the new Tumen River Bridge accelerates. So the following image will be showing you the scene of the construction of this new bridge connecting Tumen City and the Hamgyong province in North Korea.
구경하세요. 환영합니다. 并搭上参观一下本店专门批发朝鲜、韩国、俄罗斯商品。호텔 탐정도로 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 구경하세요. 환영합니다. 并搭上参观。
Wait, hold on. Now it's blue. Okay. Wait, it's playing here. Okay, let's go.
환영합니다. 并搭上参观一下本店专门批发朝鲜、韩国、俄罗斯商品。구경하세요. 환영합니다. 并搭上参观一下本店专门批发朝鲜、韩国、俄罗斯商品。호텔 탐정도로 구경하세요. 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 환영합니다. 并搭上参观一下本店专门批发朝鲜、韩国、俄罗斯商品。구경하세요. 환영합니다. 并搭上参观一下本店专门批发朝鲜、韩国、俄罗斯商品。호텔 탐정도로 구경하세요. 환영합니다. 并搭上参观一下本店专门批发朝鲜、韩国、俄罗斯商品。 호텔 첨성도로와 구경하세요. 환영합니다. 请大家参观一下本店专门批发朝鲜、韩国、俄罗斯商品。호텔 첨성도로와 구경하세요. 환영합니다. 请大家参观一下本店专门批发朝鲜、韩国、俄罗斯商品。호텔 첨성도로와 구경하세요.
I'll skip the story of this very strange four-star hotel that got transformed into one of the largest souvenir shop in Tumen City. So a lot of things that you saw in the previous clips were taken from this souvenir shop. The last city, Fangchuan. In Fangchuan, Chinese territory tapers off into a narrow corridor that ends where the boundaries of China, North Korea, and Russia meet. People can almost smell the sea air from here without physical access. The catchy slogan, "Come to Fangchuan and see three countries in one glance," or simply put, "One eye, three countries," or 一眼望三国 in Mandarin. For China, the inability to access the Sea of Japan at the mouth of the Tumen River has been effective in condemning its northeastern province as economic backwaters of China. The nearest port facilities are 2,000 kilometers to the south in Liaoning province on the Bohai Gulf. Roadside slogans attempt to convince the travelers that if we want wealth to arrive at our doorstep, we must build roads first, we must access the ocean. Roads are expected to raise the living standards and enhance the economic performance of the region. So you see different types of slogans being engraved or being hung out along the infrastructures, and this drawing is showing the expansion of the border road leading to Fangchuan, that is where China, North Korea, and Russia meet.
这是我军方的巡逻道。巡逻道有内沟和外沟，外沟就是国境线了。也就是说，我们看到的植被就是属于俄罗斯的。大家可以看到前面比较宽的黄土路，那是俄方的碱季道。它有两个作用，一个是防止火源进入，第二个作用就是如果有人或动物进入这个区域，就会在上面留下脚印。
So in the tourist destination in Fangchuan, almost every tourist were confused to check out which part is North Korea, which part in Russia, and which part in China. And also everyone is trying to find out the direction for Japan Sea, the Sea of Japan, which is almost impossible to see if there is smogs. Along the Tumen River, there are lots of bridges. The interesting is that majority, if you look at the history of the bridges along Tumen River, majority of the bridges were constructed during Japanese Empire period, and most of the broken bridges were destroyed during the nation-state period. Maybe that can provide an insight into the different notions of border between empires and nation-states. Also, the only bridge from this Fangchuan observational point you can see is this bridge, and several kilometers away from the observational point. The bridge is the only bridge, and this is the only bridge you can see from this observational point. It is a railway bridge that runs through Russia to North Korea. And in normal days, you don't see trains running through. And the bridge is a bridge, but it is also not a bridge. For Chinese, this is only obstacle that block Chinese cargo ships to reach the ocean.
边，市中心海边哪边。它那个最高点附近的谁去过的那个最高点那边可以看见。我说了半天在这，如果在这里的那个位置够高，你可以去一楼。学比较了，但是现在看看就还是那个。对，很简单的，我可以看出最简单的。说的还行。对，如果听不懂，我可以再问的，对，是可以理解的。说的还行。
往前把这个黑的挡上，不是，你往前靠，往前站，往前，我这么站，把这个挡上，哎。
Vladivostok, in Chinese, Xiaoxuan. It is a former Chinese territory, which nowadays Chinese nationalists always call to repatriate online on social media. Now the access to the sea was gained through consumerism, but can consumerism guarantee certain kind of capability to transcend national borders? We need to go bring the story back to water.
So we started from this image of South Korean president collecting the water from the Heaven Lake using a plastic bottle. We will end the story with the bottled water industry around the mountain, around the summit of Mount Changbai. Well, it seems that the cultural and the political implications of the water from Mount Changbai is fading out with the increasing influence of a cosmopolitan consumerist culture without borders. A 2004 incident reminds us how Mount Changbai / Baekdu, together with the water that is filtrated through it, are still a source of cultural identity and political imagination, and how the seemingly indisputable Sino-Korean border could still be challenged. In 2014, Korean stars Kim Soo-hyun and Jun Ji-hyun sought to revoke their contracts for an advertisement of the Chinese mineral water Evergrande Spring, or called Hengda Bingquan in Chinese. Shortly after, the door came under fire due to their appearance in the advertisement directed by the acclaimed Chinese director Chen Kaige. Some South Korean nationalists argue that the advertisement improperly states the water source in its Chinese name, Mount Changbai, rather than its Korean name, Mount Baekdu. To sign an endorsement deal for the Chinese mineral water brand that use the name Mount Changbai is considered as a betrayal to their homeland, and the door endured harsh criticism with claims of selling their own countries for money. Neither the Korean stars nor the advertising and marketing team of Evergrande Spring expected such fierce reactions to an advertisement that appears completely non-cultural and apolitical on the surface. Besides, the Chinese brand Evergrande Spring is a newcomer to the bottled water industry. Different from other brands run by well-established food or beverage companies such as Nongfu Spring from mainland China, Uni-President from Taiwan, or Nongshim from South Korea. Evergrande Spring is owned by the Evergrande Group, China's second largest property developer by sales. Based in southern China's Guangdong province, the company, which gained its fortune by selling apartments to upper and middle income buyers since its establishment in the mid-1990s, set forth to diversify its development path in early 2010. This diversification led to the expansion of its business into new territories, such as education, tourism, medical care, sports, and entertainment, as well as fast-moving consumer goods such as packaged food and beverages. As part of the company's business diversification strategy, they started to cross-pollinate ideas and forge constructive collaborations between different industries under its established brand. So skip this. So for example, Evergrande Spring has been the exclusive non-alcoholic beverage provider to sport teams such as China's national volleyball team and Guangzhou Evergrande Football Club, and have been promoting healthy lifestyles through such collaborations. In a similar way, paying big money to have Kim and Jun participate in Evergrande Spring's commercial film, directed by renowned director Chen Kaige, reflects their goal of linking the entertainment industry with fast-moving consumer goods. After investing huge sums of money in setting up mineral water plants in Mount Changbai alongside big beverage brands, more money was designated into the marketing strategy in early 2014. This strategy was implemented around the same time when the Korean drama My Love from the Star, or called 来自星星的你 in Mandarin, a love story between an alien and his human neighbor, met with unprecedented success, not only in Korea, but also in China, where it obtained more than 2.7 billion views on Chinese online platform iQIYI. Kim Sung-hyun and Jun Ji-hyun, who starred in the drama, were soon sought after by mass-market advertisers in China. Paying 1 billion Korean won, or $8.9 million for the duo's participation in the Evergrande Spring advertisement seems like a fair deal, as it helped this new brand to attract unmatched attention in China. Unexpectedly, this collaboration, made specifically for gaining bottled water market share in mainland China, was met with intense scrutiny from South Koreans. There's nothing wrong with either K-pop idols appearing in Chinese advertisement or the Chinese food and beverage companies listing the source of products as Mount Changbai. However, from the South Korean nationalist point of view, K-pop idols are supposed to be ambassadors of Korean culture. Hence, appearing in the advertisement of a Chinese product that does not call the mountain by its Korean name, Mount Baekdu, is unacceptable. A mineral water endorsement turns into a political crossroad, even if it is an innocuous and passive issue. Kim and Jun were scrutinized over politics, even when the celebrities have no real political clout. Well, Kim and Jun temporarily backed out of the deal in June 2014. They eventually decided to continue with the advertisement as a move of evoking their contracts with Evergrande Spring could potentially result in tens of millions of won in penalty for them. sound. In the released version of the commercial, while Kim Jong-hyun drinks Evergreen Spring, the narration in Chinese says, "If you like me, drink Hengda Bingquan." When you drink water daily, brew tea with it and make rice with it. The water will make you beautiful and healthy. Smiling at the camera and holding up the bottle, Kim says in Chinese, "I love only you, Evergreen Spring," at the end of the commercial. The so-called natural boundary between China and the Korean peninsula is by no means less contested than the artificial ones in other parts of the world, due to the river's ever-changing course as well as human perceptions toward it. These flows have been further accelerated and diversified by domestic and foreign capital in the past 2 decades, when the cultural meaning of the landscape started to gain economic value. While a high-speed rail freight facility has been planned since early 2018 to connect the recently established Mount Changbai mineral water industrial park in Antu to major transportation hubs in the region, the flows of consumable resources are not only fast-tracked through the establishment of new regional, national, or even transnational infrastructures. At times, the commodity flows also slow down or come to a sudden halt when nationalism temporarily prevails over capitalism. Whether caused by the violation of physical space of the Sino-Korean borderland or by the collision of different versions of narratives, memories of national cultural imageries in China, North Korea, South Korea, Russia, or Japan. The slowdown or halt of flows remind us that Tumen Shui is embedded with a multivocal history. Tumen Shui is a process motivated by loves nurtured by imperialism, capitalism, and nationalism. Thank you.